Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful tube dress with a structured detail effect, and I made mine with a yoke for modesty effect. So let's head straight to it. Firstly, you're going to be needing your basic bodice front in full from your shoulder to wherever you want your length to stop. So now you go ahead to mark in your bust circumference, which is just the distance between your bust point to your under bust. Now the reason why I am marking in my bust circumference or bust arc, because I'm not going to be marking in everything, or bust radius or diameter, whichever one, is to help me get that sweetheart neckline perfectly. I want the sweetheart neckline to come out very perfect. That is the reason why I'm imputing my bust diameter or radius, whichever one. So this is me drawing out the sweetheart neckline effect. Can you see how beautiful that looks? Okay, so this is what the sweetheart neckline effect looks like. Okay, so this is it right now. And having done this, I'm going to be making sure that I do this in full. I'm going to be doing the whole of this in full. So this is what it looks like in full. Can you see what it looks like? Now the next thing we are going to do now is to extend the shape. Looking at the thumbnail or the picture on top of the screen that we are recreating, that very particular side of the tube bustier extended towards the other side. I really don't know how to explain this better, but the picture at the top of the screen should help you know what we are actually trying to do. So I went ahead to extend this line all the way to after the waistline, like so. Okay, so now I'm going to be coming down by 1.5 inch all the way round, 1.5 inch all the way round, 1.5 inch, like so, all the way round. You're coming down all the way around 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to be joining the whole dotted 1.5 inch points together. You want to be very artistic while doing this. I mean, you want to be very, very artistic. Make sure that whatever curve you're seeing is how the shape of your structured detail is going to look like. So make sure you're preferably use a pencil like I'm using now. So when you make a mistake, you can erase it. So you want to make sure that this is looking very nice and beautiful. Okay, so that is what I'm doing right now. And here is it for this very particular one. This is what it looks like. So we're also going to be doing that of the other side. If you watch now, the sweetheart neckline is no longer at the middle. I'm going to be marking 1.5 inch at this very point. So this is the point where the sweetheart neckline is going to be starting from. Please consider the picture or the top of the screen that we are recreating. Consider the dress at the top of the screen that we are recreating, okay? So this is where the sweetheart neckline is going to start from, meaning this is our new neckline, new sweetheart neckline, not the initial one that we used at the top. Okay, so the one I'm using the pencil to mark now is our new sweetheart neckline, right? So having done this now, I'm also going to be marking 1.5 inches all the way round at this very part. Okay, starting from the new neckline which we drew. All right, so I'm going ahead to join it, those dotted 1.5 inches mark, like so. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do want to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, share this video to other sewing platforms where you know that they will be needed. Okay, so here I'm going ahead now to draw it in. As you can see, I clean off whenever I feel like the lines aren't okay. Please, you want to watch closely to see what I am doing. So at this point now, I'm separating the two. Okay, at this point I'm separating the two. So this is what that structured effect will look like. Now we are going to be tracing out all this part where I'm using my pencil to, you know, make straight lines. I'm going to be tracing out all of this part. I'm sorry if you can't see it clearly, but I hope you at least know where I said we are tracing out. Okay, so we are tracing out the whole of this part and the whole of this part, right? So having done that, I'm going to be marking in the center of my shoulder because we are trying to create the shoulder princess seam. We're trying to create the shoulder princess seam. So I'm marking the center point of my shoulder like so. So we can create the shoulder princess seam. And from that point that we marked using my ruler, I'm connecting it to the bust point like so. I'm going to be connecting it to the bust point like so. Okay. And now this is what it looks like. I'm gonna have to trace out this part. Please do well to trace this out first before you start working on the actual pattern to get your shoulder princess seam and remove your yoke and all that. So as you can see, I've traced this out and I'll go ahead to set it aside. So I can now work on this very actual pattern to get my yoke and also create the shoulder princess seam. So to create the shoulder princess seam, we are going to be cutting open our side bust dart first. So having done that, I'm also going ahead to cut open or cut on top of that very line that is our center line from the shoulder. And I'll go ahead to close the side bust dart, opening it at that very point. So same thing also we are going to be doing on the other side. Just in case you didn't get what I did clearly on the other side, I'll explain again here. I'm cutting open my side bust dart, and on that very line where we connected from the midpoint of our shoulder to the bust point, I'm going to be slashing that line open. Now when we slash the line open, we are going to be closing the side bust dart, thereby transferring the dart excess or transferring that dart to the shoulder area. So this is what it looks like. Now at this point, I'm going to be cutting out my new neckline so that I can have my yoke separate and have the bodies separate. All right, remember our new neckline. So I'm extending downwards like so. Our new neckline, please. You have to cut on the new one because that is where you're attaching your structured detail. Okay, so this is it right here. I'm going ahead now to cut like so from here. Also, I'm going ahead now to cut this from here. You want to be very careful while doing all of this so you do not rip your pattern. So now I'm going ahead to close this up so it can just be a whole piece. All right, I'm going to be closing this up so it can be a whole piece and you wouldn't have the stress of sewing up on your sewing machine. You're closing it up so when you cut it on your fabric, it comes out as a whole. All right, so we are setting the yoke aside and let's work on this. So now we're going to be cutting out from your center, and someone will wonder, why cutting on the center? Where would the structural detail fall? Now the structural detail that went down or that extended towards the skirt part is going to be hand stitched after you must have joined the lower part of the bodice to the upper part of the bodice. Okay, it's going to be hand stitched and I'll explain as we go on in this video. Now for the bustier region, please, I have to contour my underbust. I didn't do that initially. Please contour your underbust, okay, so that you have that fitted feminine look at the underbust. I'm going to have to contour the underbust, which is just 1 inch apart from the bust apart measurement at the underbust line. 1 inch apart at the bust apart from the bust apart measurement at the underbust line. You connect it to the bust point and to the waist dart like so. All right, so same thing also we're going to be doing to this part. You're going to be marking 1 inch from your bust apart measurement at the under bust line, please. And then on that very 1 inch that you marked, you connect to your bust point like so, and you go ahead to connect to the waistline dart, the original waistline dart like so. I've been doing it in so many of my videos. All right, I've been doing this in so many of my videos to do with bustier. So if you've been following my channel, you should get used to this. If you're new here and you want to know more about it, I can drop a video that has the full contour details on it so you can go watch it. Okay, just drop a comment in the comment section and I'll drop the link to a full contour video so you can go check that out. If I haven't done that, I'm going to have to cut this out right now like so. Okay, so I'm taking off that dart right now. Same thing I'll go ahead to do now. Okay, so this is what this looks like. And I do not want to have all those pointy edges. So you should at least trim off those pointy edges. So you have the natural, natural breast curve. So that is what I went ahead to trim off now here. Can you see what that looks like? So we'll also do the same thing to this part. So can you see what that looks like? So this is our tube with the yoke. Okay, this is what our tube with yoke looks like. So we are going to head straight now to the skirt part. Let me show you before we go over to the structured detail. Now for the skirt part, you just want to cut that open. It's very simple. You just want to cut your dart open on both sides. And then you go ahead to just sew up the dart on your sewing machine, okay? That's just it, you sew it up. So now this is the structured effects that structured detail that we traced out, okay? This is what it looks like, the structured detail that we traced out. Now, what do we do to this structured detail to make it stand like the one you're seeing on the screen? You have to add fullness to it. By adding fullness, you're going to be adding fullness, not at the part where you're going to stitch onto the neckline area, but the part that is outwards. I don't know how to explain this better. The part that is outwards. So I'm drawing in my star lines now. We're going to be slashing and spreading on those star lines to add fullness. Because if you just sew this on top of just sew it that way on the tube dress, it's just going to be flat. No matter the kind of thick cloth gum or whatever you put on it, is going to be flat. So in order to get that standing effect, you have to slash and spread this and add little fullness to it. Okay, I have a video where I sewed something like this on an Ankara. I'm going to be dropping it in the comment section, so you guys can go check that out and at least see the version of it where I sewed it. So now you're going to be slashing and spreading this, and we're going to be doing that together. I've drawn in the star lines. We're going to go ahead now to slash and spread it on a fresh pattern paper together. You guys, I'm sorry I have to use white. I hope you guys can see it. I'm supposed to use a different color of paper, but here I'm using white. So can you see the direction where we are slashing? We are opening the down part of it, but the very top part of it where we are to stitch on the neckline, the tube neckline, we are not cutting on it, meaning it still retains its measurement. The only part where the measurement has been altered is that part where it's outwards, where it's not being stitched on anything, it's standing on its own. I hope I'm explaining better how you guys will understand it. So we're opening this up now and we're taping it down. Please, you're slashing and spreading. This gap should be just very little. The fullness you're introducing should be something very little. I think 0.5 inches should be okay. Or even smaller than that. 0.5 or below 0.5. Please do not exceed 0.5. So I've gone ahead to slash and spread it out on a fresh pattern paper. I've used my tape to hold it down. I'm going ahead to cut it out, okay? Whatever we do to this very one is what we're also going to be doing to the other structured effect, okay? So we're going to be cutting this out. Now I want to say, after doing this, when you have cut it on your fabric, you can use a very thick cloth gum, okay, to iron it on the fabric. You can also cut the thick cloth gum exactly as this shape that you have cut out on your fabric, all right, and iron it on it to give it that extra firmness, all right. So you can use a thick cloth gum, please, not a hairstay, very thick cloth gum, because you want this to stand, all right. Despite the fact that you've added fullness on the fabric, you also want to add a thick cloth gum to it to give it more structured effect. So this is what it looks like, All right, don't worry, we are going to be stitching it together, or we're going to be attaching it together on the paper. I'm gonna have to join the paper together. All right, if this were to be a fabric, it's going to be, sitting pretty, but because it's a paper, the paper is kind of trying to rumple and all that. But I hope you guys grasp what we are trying to do here. So you're going to be attaching this to your lower bodies, all right, before you go ahead to stitching the structured effect. So let's head over to stitching in the structured effect. What are you going to do now? You're going to start from, of course, where you started the tracing from, which is actually here. You're going to be stitching on the top. On the top, please. You're going to be stitching on the top. You have to stitch this first before you stitch your yoke. All right. So I'm putting it now here. Also, I'll go ahead to use my sellotape and hold it down. You're stitching this first before you stitching your yoke. So I'll go ahead also to use my sellotape and hold this down. You have to be very patient while doing this. Of course, it's something that is curvy, so you have to sew it gently and gradually. Do well to check out that video I dropped in the comment section so that you would see the stitching process of the very one I did with Ankara. So you have to be very careful while doing this, gradually, gradually, gradually. And now when you get to that point where the new neckline is, you stop your stitching. Of course, while working on or while sewing up the structured effect, you have to make sure that that very part from where the new neckline stopped, you have sewed it correctly. Like you have sewed it and there are no loose places hanging around, because you're going to be hand stitching that part. Okay, you're going to be hand stitching it. You're going to be using your needle and thread to hand stitch that part onto the main dress. So having done that, this is what it looks like right now. So before you attach the yoke, you're done with the structured effect. And of course, you have also sewn the down part of it. Like I said, you're going to be hand stitching this part from where the new neckline stops. You're going to be using a needle and thread to hand stitch the structured effect on both sides down to where it's entered into the lower bodies. Okay, so after doing that, I just want to show you guys that this is what it looks like. All right, with the yoke, you can wear this to any event. You can use it on an Ankara, you can use it on a lace. So long as you've done it right, it's going to come out beautiful. Just look at what the structured effect looks like. Can you guys see it? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next